Welcome back once again. We'll continue the concept of technology forecasting, which we have already discussed the introduction as well as some of the methods of the same in the previous session. So today's session we will be concentrating on some generally used technology forecasting methods. Relevance 3, the concept of relevance trees, morphological methods, flow diagram and combination forecasting technologies, which is implemented in product lifecycle management, integration of technology production, innovation and product development in business processes within the enterprise, whatever the consideration which is related to the combination as well as integration of technology which is considered for the innovation as well as the product development process, that we are going to study. Methods as well as the tools in the innovation process, which we're going to consider depending upon the situation. So all these concepts we'll discuss today's class. So we'll start with the general methods usually we're going to consider in technology forecasting. We have listed the three major methods, starting from brainstorming, second one consider it as a Delphi technique, and third one is consider it as a trend extrapolation. So let us discuss one by one. Initially we have started with the first method called brainstorming. The basic or the basis of the method is that ideas should not be evaluated at the generation stage, during which many new ideas emerges. Thus there is a separation of the idea generation and evaluation stages. So initially we need to consider the concept of brainstorming. So in order to consider here, we need to have a separate group, we need to have a discussion. By discussing among the group, you'll be getting a new ideas, and whatever the ideas you'll be getting, that should be scanned and screened it in a particular platform. So this is also one of the TF method, technology forecasting method, to improve the changes which is going to be taking place along with the sequence of operation. So whatever the consideration if you take, that will be followed with the sequential manner, it consisting of different steps, and even in brainstorming also we will be following 6 different steps, and the same steps which is given here. We have the initial step where we'll be identifying the person as a group leader. Initially we'll be supposed to make a group, and in this particular group we need to identify a suitable person as a team leader. The second step, identification of the problem by a group, so that the multiple dimensions of the problem involved are clearly highlighted. So initially we formed a group, and from the group we have taken one person as a group leader. After that we need to identify the problem which is encountered for the process. For that problem we need to give proper dimension. This is the second step. After considering the second step, proceeded with the third stage. So in step 3, a definition and a redefinition of the problem, so that it is clearly understood by the group. So what we need to do, we need to identify the problem, we need to give a proper definition. If you have any modification, again redefinition can also be done with the help of suitable consideration or a tool. And from proceeding with all these consideration, it is very clearly understood by the group. So in the step 4, idea generation process is initiated. Once a number of ideas are collected, a number of triggering questions are initiated to help combine ideas or approaches. We are proceeding it with the systematic manner. We have started with the concept of brainstorming, which is a method which is implemented in technology forecasting. So we are following the steps, and in the fourth stage we need to generate the idea by considering all the aspects from step 1 to 3. So we need to collect the ideas, and after collecting the idea, number of triggering questions are initiated to help the combine ideas as well as the approaches. The group, if you make if you exchange questions, you'll be getting the better idea, you'll be getting the better information. With the help of that information we can develop a concept. So after the step 4, we'll be proceeding with the step 5, where the recorded ideas are reviewed once, then classified and streamlined into a related ideas and clusters. Segregation which have been taken in fifth step, and in sixth step again we need to make a rearrangement. Rearranged ideas are evaluated possibly through reverse brainstorming process through a series of eliminating the questions. So once again, after considering all the steps, now rearrangement of the ideas are also very essential, and this consideration will be proceeding with step 6. Now we'll discuss something about the application of brainstorming process. For what purpose we need to implement this method? For obtaining new ideas of products or processes or services or the procedures, we can have this brainstorming method. New ideas, we can try for a new ideas by discussing among the groups, by implementing the concept of brainstorming. For identifying new users or market segments, we can also have a use of identifying the new users as well as the different market segments. Bottlenecks, in order to overcome from that, we can have a use of brainstorming for identifying alternative options or methods. So there are different methods in order to solve a problem. So in order to find the alternative option, or in order to find the alternative methods, will be proceeding with this kind of method. Here we have different advantages as well as disadvantages. We have listed here. It is easy to organize, and resources needed are modest. This is one advantage we can have here. Very easy to organize the process, as well as the resources what we are going to use for this are modest. But there is some disadvantages. We need to focus on the disadvantages also. Here the main disadvantages is this method requires experienced person to connect it. This is very important. What are the process if you take, and what consideration you have been taken here, it's a skilled person is required. He is supposed to have some experience in that particular field. Sufficient time is needed for organizing a brainstorming exercise. You require a lot more time to organize a brainstorming exercise. This is a very good exercise in order to find out the technological change, or the consideration of the changes, but it requires sufficient time. We'll move on to the second method called Delphi method. So in Delphi method, Delphi is programmed sequential questionnaires approach. So it is a programmed sequential questionnaire approach. Instead of an individual making a forecast, a group prepares a forecast, but with certain characteristics. So this is what the differences or the changes we can make out as compared with the brainstorming as well as Delphi technique. And here also you need to proceed certain steps. We have listed around 7 steps which is involved in Delphi technique. Initially, starting from identifying the specific area or field in which a Delphi exercise has to be carried out. Initially you need to identify, or you need to specify the area where you need to implement the concept of Delphi technique. Second one, you need to identify a set of users, technology generation or experts, equipment manufacturer, development bankers, and social scientists, and other who can help in preparing a set of questions for forecasting technological developments in a given area. Initially we have specified the area. Now you need to specify, or you need to identify the set of users who are going to use this particular kind of exercise. So whatever the area you have been specified, there you will find set of users depending upon their requirement, which will help in preparing a set of questions for forecasting technological developments in certain areas. So it is specified already. We'll move on to the third step. Here we have a small core group which is formed to prepare the questionnaires with the help of person, or to cover among other aspects the desirability of the technological development, its feasibility, time frame, and resources needed for commercial use and impact. All these consideration which we will going to consider in step 3. Sequentially we'll be following the steps: identification of the area, identification of the users. Now we need to consider a small core group where we're going to form a questionnaires, which will going to help the person to cover among all the aspects what he wanted to change. Next, step 4, here we'll be considering the questionnaires. The questionnaires is then administered to a number of participants to cover a wide cross section of interests. This is another part where we'll be considering the different questionnaires, the number of participants which is considered, or they're used to cover a wide cross section of interests. Now we'll go for step 5. Here the first round responses for the questionnaire is to obtain and processed, wherein minority and even extreme views etc are also included. In the step 5 we need to consider the first round response and come to the 6th step. We'll be considering the second round response or the questionnaires, which consisting or containing the processed responses of the first round questionnaires. Then it's sent back to a participants to give their revised comments etc. So in the final stage, the second round results are then proceeded to get the final result. Now we'll find out the applicational area of this Delphi technique. So by implementing this method, I identify new factors like to influence the future state of technological development. You can also use this application to obtain probabilistic estimates of technological performance over a specified time horizon. We can also consider this to obtain forecasts of a time scale for an event where other methods cannot be used, and also which is used to obtain subjective quantitative measures of technological performance in the absence of objective data. We go for the third method, is consider it as a trend extrapolation. So in trend extrapolation is one of the simplest and most commonly used forecasting technique. This is initially used for the simplest process, as well as most commonly we are going to use this techniques in technology forecasting. This method uses historical data on selected technological parameters for projecting the failure trends. It thus implies that the historical trends are a resultant of a numbers of forces which will continue to behave as in the past unless there are strong reason to the contrary. So here we'll be considering the aspects where you'll be using some historical data which we have been selected for the technological parameter for projecting the future trends. All these aspects, for that how you're going to approach by implementing this method is very essential, and this is also considered it as simplest as most commonly used forecasting techniques. If I talk about the consideration as well as the method which we are going to use for technology forecasting, not only we are considering the three methods what we have already studied, and apart from that we have some other consideration. In that, one of the important consideration we have taken is the relevance trace. So in this method, the objective to be achieved is divided into a set of major activities. You need to list out the activities which is interconnected to each other. Each activity is broken down further into missions, and each mission is subdivided into a task sequences. What is going to happen, that they have been listed here. Then the deficiency with respect to the specific task is identified, based on which a project or an action is recommended. We can see whatever the process which is going to be taking place systematically in relevance tree. In thus involves a historical listing of task as well as its alternatives, and each branches is thus to be considered as a goal or sub goals etc. The main advantage of this method is that the objectives and the actions to be taken are get linked. That means whatever the objectives as well as the considerations you have been taken, they are interrelated to each other. You can see this representation where you have objectives, and this objective is divided it into different activities. Say for example, we have given here activity 1, we have given here activity 2, and also we have given here it as activity 3. So say for example, in that you're supposed to choose particularly whatever the activity you have been taken, which consisting of number of tasks. Say for example, in activity 3 we have taken the consideration of different tasks: task number 1, task number 2, task number 3. Again, if you come to the concentration of tasks, which is also divided it into a systems, we can see which are interconnected to each other. The task one which consisting of system 1 and 2. If I talk about the system which is interconnected with the deficiency 1 as well as 2, if I go for the deficiency, again here you'll be having project 1 or action 1, project 2 or action 2. All these are linked each other, and this consideration what you will going to make, that is consider it as a relevance tree. So after representing the relevance tree, you need to see what are all the methods which consisting of the following steps, means what are the steps which is considered in this particular case. We have considered 3 major steps. Starting from the first step, we need to arrange in hierarchical order the objectives, the sub objectives as well as the activities, 20 missions as well as the tasks. Initially you need to consider the objectives. If you have any other objectives, mention the objectives, other sub objectives. Under the objectives, what are all the activities comes under, and along with the activities, what are all the sub parameter which we have been taken, that you need to arrange it in a systematic manner. That is your step 1. After considering the step 1, you need to go for, or you need to consider the second step, where you need to ensure that all possible ways of achieving the objectives have been included or assessed. In the second stage, again you need to consider the possible way of achieving the objectives, whatever the way or the consideration or the step you have been taken, that used to be noted in the stage 2. And coming to step 3, evaluation. Evaluate the relevance of individual tasks and sub objectives of the overall objectives is to be considered. Now you need to focus on the advantages and disadvantages of a relevance tree. If I talk about the advantages, which will going to provide a systematic method for assessing the route to be used for achieving a defined future objectives or solving a given problem. Better systematic method, which will going to provide a systematic method. We can see, you have already seen the method which we have been followed systematically, by considering the objectives, by considering the activities, by considering the task. And also this relevance tree helps in deciding whether an objective is likely to be achieved or not, and also which will going to help in determining the alternative ways by which a given objective might be achieved. Because whatever the problem if you take, which is not having only one particular solution, there is an alternative way to reach the target. So by implementing these kind of methods as well as the technique, we can also determine the alternative way to find the solution. So not only this, this relevance tree is also having certain disadvantages, and in this particular relevance tree, for a large complex technology, could become too complicated to be handled. That is very important, because we need to consider the aspects where you will be having different variety of considerations. We have a combination of different links, so obviously handling will be a very complication here, because each steps are segregated or sub divided into various parameters. So handling is a very difficult task, and even that also we can consider, or we can note this as a disadvantages for relevance tree. Now we'll go for another method called morphological methods. So in the morphological approach is another normative type of technique which involves a systematic evaluation of all possible combinations of a solutions to individual part of a whole system. This is also a type of method which we're going to consider, and we're going to proceed with the systematic evaluation of all possible combination of the solution to individual parts of a whole system. And in this analysis, the whole problem is broken down into parts of a whole system. Now let us talk about the advantages as well as the disadvantages of this particular method, morphological methods. So if I talk about the advantages, morphological methods as well as the model can be used to identify requirements for individual technologies of a specific system. Initially we're going to consider, and which is used mainly for identifying the requirements for individual technologies of a specific system. And coming to the disadvantages, which cannot be used to obtain quantitative estimates of relative importance of various technological goals. And this is a static model and is not suited to take care of systems that change with time or describe the logical sequence of events. So now we'll go for another concept called flow diagram and a combination of forecast of technologies. We'll just focus on this concept where we'll be studying the flow diagram and combining forecast of technology. We need to combine the forecasting technology. So initially we'll concentrate on flow diagram. We know that a flow diagram is a diagram to describe the control flow of a business process or review. We know that flow diagram is a diagram which is going to describe the flow of a business process, and we can also consider this flow diagram as control flow diagram. And this diagram which is helpful to break the component of a decision making into three groups, which is considered in three main groups. We can also mention here uncontrollable group, controllable group, and certain resources which is used. Now we can see combining of the forecasting technology which have the flow diagram, where we can see, looking this diagram, we have the consideration, the decision maker, how the decision maker is going to make the consideration as well as the decision, which is how the interrelation which we have been taken with the different performances. Now after representing or after indicating the flow diagram, we'll move on to the integration of technology, production, innovation and product development in business process within the enterprises. Now we need to combine, we need to integrate, or we need to consider all the aspects of production, innovation and product development in the business processes. So let us talk about, in many companies, the product development technology is usually a key instrument in the organization. We know that because most of the cases, whatever the production system if you take, where the product development technique is very essential in the organization of manufacturing as well as the administrative task if you take. So integration of technology and business processes presents a strategic link for creating efficiencies in the development of highly complex products. So integration of technology is very essential, and which is having its own advantages. And here also, what is the main necessity of integrating, that they had been mentioned, and the integration of individual technological processes and their inputs and outputs, integration of technology and other business processes, or integration of market demands and technology capacities, etc. All these processes require building of a functional technology infrastructures as well as the network. So what we can assist here is, we have a infrastructure or the considerations as well as the representation of all the ideas which are interconnected to each other. We need to combine all the aspects in order to get the better result. Only for that reason we had been taken the consideration of different ideas, whether it may be ideas from R&D technology, whether it may be ideas from innovative technology, whether it may be ideas from different technological analysis, whether it will be considered from different technology assessment, etc. which are systematically processed to integrate the technology management. And same consideration which is represented over the flow diagram, where we can see integrated technological managements are interconnected with the different aspects we have already mentioned are interconnected, where we have a consideration of identification, we have a consideration of implementation, we have a consideration of commercialization. So in order to identify whatever the sources of the data we have been interconnected or integrated, now after identification we need to implement it. For the implementation, whatever the consideration you have been taken, after implementation you need to consider the commercialization, whatever the process or whatever the sequence you have been maintained, ultimately you need to get the result. How you will going to commercialize it? By taking the various parameters. Now we'll move on to strategic and operative technology management integration aspects. So in this particular field of strategic management, which deals with major intended and emerged initiatives taken by the manager or the owner of a company, involving the determination of a vision, mission, key long-term goals and plans, and the allocation of investment necessary for those goals and plans. So here we'll be mainly focusing on technology management. Why we need to consider technology management? Because this technology management should provide strategic management with information, proposals for investment, technology infrastructure and support. So we need to study all these aspects, and this each assessment what we have been considered in technology management should consider its three vertical levels, and we have taken these three vertical levels are strategic management level, strategic technology management level, and operative technology management levels. So if you look at this graph where we have time versus investment, where you can see the actual representation of the strategic management as well as the consideration what we have taken technological management. For that, whatever the strategy you have been maintained, so here we can identify the integration of different levels of technology management we have been involved. Next we'll move on to methods and tools in the innovation process according to the situation. According to any situation, if you take how you will going to consider the innovation process, the tools, as well as how you will going to implement this for a particular method. Tools for innovation come in many different shapes and sizes. As we know, there are many useful tools such as mind maps, collaboration softwares, modeling softwares, knowledge and idea management systems, etc. And these all have a role in the innovation process, but they are not innovation tools as per they implement generic activities. So we need to see some of the tools where we can consider one tool as community building tools. So here the community research and development is a knowledge discovery process for identifying and exploring needs and desires. So it consisting of context selection tools, it consisting of knowledge community exploration tool, which also consisting of technology mapping tool. So now I go for further tour where we have elicitation and synthesis tools. There are tools are uncover and capture the explicit knowledge held by individuals. So again, they help to detect meaningful patterns in the raw data and to synthesize a holistic picture. So individual engagement tool is one we can also consider in elicitation and synthesis tool. Individual engagement tools we can also consider community member profiling tool, which includes in this case opportunity mapping tool, which is also included in this particular case. Again, if I talk about the next type, where we're going to consider for ecosystem modeling tools. In ecosystem modeling tools, again, tool this particular tools to create an understanding of the complex business ecosystem using the system dynamics modeling methods, consisting of value triangulation tool, which consisting of value event modeling tool, which consisting of ecosystem economy modeling tool, etc. Now we'll go for the ideation tool. This is the last type of tool. Ideation tools are ones that supports and facilitate the creative brainstorming and idea creation process. And this consisting of different considerations or the devices. We can have a springboards, we can have those ideation session, we can have a storyboarding, we can also have the process of design burst, etc. So this is all about the parameter as well as the factors which is considered under technology forecasting. Thank you.